All right, continuing with this project, I've worked with one cloud reference on top of my cookie cutter. Now I'm working with the second. And you see how they work together. I'm going to play with the levels because I have still a lot of the blue from that original sky. So I want to wash that out. And these are strange cloud shapes. They have a lot of sharp edges, which I like. But then on the other hand, instead of going in and kind of erasing and softening all of those, I can use a filter. So this is also new. I can say filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I'm doing this directly to that reference, but I'm just going to do it very slightly. You see, if I do it at 30 pixels, Gaussian blur is nice because it gives you a strength degree. That's way too soft. But if I do it at just a few pixels, instead of 30, maybe something like 3 or 4, that's the softness I want. Now, if there's an area, just an area of your reference that you want to blur like that, that's where the blur tool comes in. So for instance, on this reference, which everything here is great, but down here, it's kind of a bad cutout, and it's really, really sharp. I can use the blur tool. Notice that I have a strength of 100%, and it is doing something. It's my history. I use the blur tool a lot there, and it's very hard to tell the difference unless you go from the beginning here to the end. But you can do that to fine-tune blurring should you need to. I often find it just much easier to just use a soft eraser. And I'm not trying to perfect anything yet until I've layered up most things. So use a low opacity kind of soft eraser. And I can do a lot of that. I can also use my lasso and just going to take this whole bottom edge of the cloud, most of which won't be showing anyway, and then run my Gaussian blur filter just on that selection of it. You see how that can blur it all out. And that's going to help a lot too. But clouds are not universally soft edges. And you see the textures that this new cloud form gives me that might be more suggestive of my creature. And I might decide to erase it out strategically at low opacities. Let some of these shadows still come through. And I might decide to erase out the big boy cloud. I'm only erasing at a 17% opacity. So it's just letting some of my gradated sky come through in some areas. That's not the worst thing ever. It's just the sky, the wind is really tugging at it at the edges. So it's barely there. And of course I can just take the whole opacity of that cloud down as well, if I ever feel like it. That will help them blend together. All right, so we've got a lot of these techniques. I'm basically going to be using all of those techniques over and over again to build up my cloud creature. So there's no mystery to it. Just a lot of using the same tools. Okay, so let's keep this nice and clean. That's my cutout. These are the cloud references I've used so far. I'm going to get rid of the stuff I don't need from them. And if I want to use this, I might use it somewhere later. So I'm going to duplicate it onto its own layer. In fact, I'm going to do something else. This is new as well. Instead of doing Command J to duplicate this section of this layer, I want to save this on its own layer for myself later. So I'm going to do Command X. And what Command X does is it deletes it, but it copies it onto the clipboard, so that then I can do Command V and paste it, and it will move it to the middle of the field. Whoops. But it will be its own layer. If I turn off auto select can get you in trouble with clouds because there's so much transparency. So now that's its own layer I can play with later. All right, so let's see. Here's my cookie cutter. I've got that. I've got the messy antlers, horns, head. Now let's do the body. Let's shape this a little bit more. Just like rolling dough. Tug that edge in, then push it out. It's also natural, man. Do you get the shape you want? And now I need this cut here, so I'm just going to erase that in with this low opacity eraser, which obliterates my edge, but I'm going to use another cloud to get that edge back. Just don't leave any hard edges. And then it revealed this little thing here, which might be great for a tail. Actually, it would be great for a tail. So let me Command X that. Paste it onto its own layer, move that back into the tail region. I can use that later. All right, now let's do the body. So there we go. Take its opacity down more so I can see. Now let's warp it. Shape it back. And I understand some of our creatures are a lot more complicated in their shapes than others. Some suggest clouds much more than others. I don't need this to all be one cloud. This can be clouds on top of clouds, like rolling clouds. And that might be a nice way to go for this approach. You know, and I kind of have that here already with these edges, especially if I take the opacity up of this foreground cloud. Okay, but how do I soften that edge? How do I get it to work? Well, I can first work with the levels, and I can limit the darks. That helps. I can also do the trick of selecting all the empty space around and then refining the edge and feathering it just slightly. And it will bite into that edge a little. And you'll see it if I zoom in. So by refining that selection edge, you see it bites in just a couple pixels, and it will feather it when I hit delete, so that it's now a little bit blurrier, more believable. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I can use the blur tool selectively on certain edges, but you have to use it a lot. It's a very slow working tool. It takes a while to process. So I just did a bunch of blurring, ton of blurring. Let's see if I can tell the difference. Yeah, just a little bit. So if I don't think that's going to cut it and I need a lot more blur, I then go in with my soft low opacity eraser and just tap it a few times in a few select places to really help it blend in. If I really want to separate out these two clouds, I can also use dodge and burn. So on this background cloud, I'll increase its opacity a little bit, but I'm going to burn its midtones very lightly with a very soft brush at a very low exposure. I'm just going to burn it right back here And you see what that does is it gives like a shadow behind one of the clouds. See, so that's without it, and that's with it. And that helps. So lots of different techniques. So I want to stack those clouds up. Okay, what about my tail? I can bring that up above. And I can simply, whoops, wrong layer. My tail. Oh, I don't have auto select on. There we go. My tail, let's bring that up. It's on top, and now I'm just going to erase away from it. Kind of blend it in, but it can be its own cloud. It can be its own thing. But I'm going to play with its levels a little bit, brighten it up. Go the other way. Nope, let's limit its, having more success limiting the shadows than actually forcibly brightening. And now erasing freely. And for good measure, let's bite away at it with the refine selection. And I might have to go to a 100% opacity brush here for some of these little knickknacks. The only thing you need to erase away at 100% are hard edges. Everything else can kind of be taken down incrementally. All right, what's next? Legs, probably the hardest thing. Oh, by the way, with this body cloud, maybe I want to burn a shadow underneath it to kind of match the lighting. And I can do that. Just midtones, burn underneath a little, and that will help suggest the body. I can do that on the tail. Give it a little bit of substance underneath. I can do that up here. Kind of separate out the head from the neck. And burn into those shadows a little bit. And you see it all works. It's all brought together by this cauliflower layer that helps merge them. Okay. A little bit more erasing. So let's see, with the cookie cutter, what am I missing? I'm missing legs. How do you get legs? Well, you do not get them by drawing verticals. Instead, you get them by linking up chains of clouds that are kind of broken. So I want this to suggest the lower leg or the back leg. So let me grow it a little bit. Let me warp it just a little bit. I have to keep it horizontal though. So that's the footfall of that leg. Now play with the adjustments, brighten these, and then limit the shadows. So the color works well. I can selectively burn, and then I'm going to lightly, with a low opacity, erase some of this space between. So it's like the clouds are pushing away from each other and creating the suggestion of legs. I think I'll need a little bit more. So I'll go to this other reference, which has little broken up shapes I can use. That's going to suggest the knee. They're like constellations, right? Bless you. Going to play with the levels. Again, it's the same tricks, kind of over and over. Adjust the color balance just a little bit.